sun. To dream, believe in strength. Now I'm the only one. Only one.
Thank you so much, Carolyn, for joining me this evening. For those of you who don't know Carolyn, she is a most wonderful, amazing person, a president of a chapter, Writer of the Year recipient, and past president of the league. She has done so many things and contributed so much that I'm super excited to interview you. Thank you so much for joining.
I'm honored to be here. I'm thrilled. The league is a very important part of my life, and I think it's such an important thing for writers to have the league.
Awesome. So what we want to do is, I mean, I did like a little introduction there, but really I want to hear from you. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, like maybe where you grew up, and a little bit about your writing career.
Oh, I will. I grew up here in Salt Lake City, and all I wanted to be was a writer. I think from when I was about 9 years old. And I loved reading before that. When I was 4, my dad bought me a tricycle, and he thought I would ride it all over, and it would be my favorite toy. And I got on the tricycle, and I rode up the street 2 houses, and then I said, I want my book now. And it's been like that ever since. And it was my one dream. And I think the league can really help all of us feel like we're not alone in our dreams, that we can support each other, and it just offers a backbone for us in our careers. Then I think I kind of thought I would be a novelist, but I started writing articles. I veered off into that, and I kind of never stopped. My dream was to write a book. I published my first book about 20 years ago, and then I published 2 other books. I'm working on the other books now, and I do some ghostwriting. I've ghostwritten some books. The biggest magazine I've ever written for is People magazine, and I was a stringer for them for several years, and that was a fun thing.
Wow.
And I've been in Ladies Home Journal, Family Circle. I really like to encourage people still to write articles. They're still a great market for all of us to consider.
And I love that you mentioned that, because when I had set out in my career, I never thought I was going to write articles on anything. I thought I was going to write fantasy novels. I was going to live my dream. And then when my first book wasn't successful, I actually ended up writing for a Sports Illustrated and Yahoo, and it was all article work. And I had never imagined myself doing that, but it was a lot of fun, and it taught me a lot of invaluable lessons when it came to writing. So I second that.
Yeah. I've learned so much, and I think you'll agree. You learn what it's like to work with an editor, what it's like to gather news and do interviews, and it's just a great learning experience to write articles. I really encourage people. But I think writing itself is a wonderful learning experience. All that we learn when we write. And then the league, I think, is wonderful because writing, as wonderful as it is kind of lonely sometimes. Do you ever feel like it's lonely?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's lonely, and so to be around other writers, there's nothing like the support that brings, the feeling of not being alone, and the feeling like this is possible. I think we writers can help other writers see that this is possible and that we can keep going. I'm sure you feel that way too, that it's just a great connection for us.
Absolutely. And it's funny, when I published my first book, and even when I was writing articles, I actually didn't know about the league at that point. And writing was so hard, and it's so tough and difficult to kind of trudge through it kind of on your own. I mean, I had my family, and they were very supportive, but any writer could tell you there's a different type of support when you get into an organization like the league, and what they bring in as far as everybody knows what you're going through. We totally get it.
Oh, they do. And I think every time you go to a league meeting, I think hearing a speaker there, it kind of pumps us up, do you think? And we want to come home and write again. It helps us face writing again when we go and hear a speaker. And when we hear maybe the challenges other writers have gone through. It helps us feel like we're not alone, and that we can keep going. And one thing I like about writing is that it's flexible. You have a family yourself. You probably know you can get up
Hmm.
early or stay up late. You can use its flexibility to work around your schedule. Whether you're working another job, it's always there for you.
Right, absolutely. So I know you've had different roles in the league, and I kind of touched on some, but I kind of want to hear from you. Like, what different things have you done within the league?
Let's see, I have done the ones that you mentioned, and then another one I did, I was PR, I was public relations for several years, and I loved that. And I was a very humbling experience to be the president of the league. That was really humbling. I was thrilled that year because we were able to bring in Mary Higgins Clark
Oh
as
my
our
gosh,
speaker.
that
So
sounds
it was just
amazing.
a thrill. But she even showed that she was human like other writers. She lost her plane ticket. She lost her plane ticket, and she had insisted on having a paper ticket. She would not take an online ticket. Then she lost her ticket. And so, but she was very, very understanding. She gave me her American Express number and had me charge another ticket for her. And so that was a fun thing when she came when I was the president. And I've loved being president of my chapter several times. I feel like the league is just an important resource, and I like to have our chapter be there for people to come. And I know sometimes people will come to the league for a while, then they'll leave for a while, and then come back. But I always want to be part of keeping it so the league is always there. It's always there for us. And I think a lot more people would come if they knew about the league. Sometimes it takes a while to find out about the league. Do you think?
Oh, it's so true. That's been one of our greatest struggles, and I'm so grateful. Right now, we have an amazing marketing team and a whole team of marketers who are formulating and working and figuring out how to get us out there more. I mean, and I'm super excited because we've grown quite a bit. When I first started in the league, um, we only had about 250 members, and then we got up to our height, which I think was like 570 members. So it kind of fluctuates in there. It's exciting, but you're right. I think there's a lot more people that could really use our help, and I think it's just them getting them to know about us. And I think it's only a matter of time, to be honest. We have so many great people working on it right now. I think it's really cool.
And I love how the league is for all kinds of writers, really for anyone who's interested in writing, whether you've done it a lot or whether you're just starting, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction or a screenplay. It's always there for you, no matter what kind of a writer you are. And I really like that about it, how universal it is. It's a great thing.
Absolutely, I believe in that for sure. So I'm curious. When did you join the league?
I can tell you what year. I'm embarrassed, but I'll tell you how long ago this was. 1976. Can you believe
Oh
that?
my gosh, that is awesome! I love it, and it's on a bicentennial year. That
It was
that is so cool.
It was, and back then too, the league was as welcoming as it is now. I was really encouraged to come. It was kind of when I started writing in about 1976, and I still remember how welcoming everyone was, and they invited me to come and enter the contest and to join a chapter. And I've been in it ever since. I used to be in a chapter that met at Pioneer Craft House, and we were
Mm,
called the Craft House chapter. And then we decided to move to Holiday Library, but Helen Glissmeyer, one of our longtime members, said, let's change our name to Wordcraft, and it will still have the word craft in it, which in writing is a craft. So
yep.
we felt good about that. And I've met so many wonderful people in the league and had so many wonderful speakers come. I'm sure you feel that way. And meeting the speakers is fun too, do you think? And
Oh,
I love the
absolutely.
and I love the opportunities where at fall conference you can meet with an agent or a publisher. And what other way can you do that? It's just a great thing. And then also too, another great thing about the league, I think, is that it doesn't cost very much to belong to the league. It's not very expensive, and even entering the contest isn't that expensive. So it's very accessible. I think that's another great thing about it.
Oh, for
Yeah, I
sure.
joined I joined back in 1976, and I've just been in it since then, and plan to stay the rest of my life.
Well, awesome. I am so glad. You have been a fantastic staple of the league. You have been so reliable and so amazing to work with. I have to put that out there. Having been in the executive committee, you were just always so great to work with. So I definitely appreciate that.
I feel that way about you, Jared. We're so lucky to have you.
So I'm kind of curious, like how many chapters were in the league when you joined?
I think there were about 10 tops. There are more now than there were then. There are more now. The first meeting I went to, I remember I felt like I was going to the U.S. Senate or something. It was quite a big meeting, and there were a lot of delegates. There were people that were called delegates. I don't know if we have delegates now. I don't know. Do we? I'm not sure.
So
There were
so
people.
we do when a chapter has more than 30 people, they have a delegate that goes with the
Okay.
president to the board meetings.
Good to know. But a lot of enthusiasm. I think where writing is such a lonely thing, I also think too there aren't a lot of other outlets like the league. It's kind of a rare thing. There aren't a lot of choices for writers because we are off on our own a lot. I think because we work alone, so this is just a valuable, one of a kind thing. The league is, and it's a friendly thing, kind of a warm organization. I always feel like.
So I'm kind of curious. Do you remember who was president of the league when you joined the league?
Boy, let me think. I remember, and the contest there was a guy named Steve, and his last name was spelled Stumph, and he was the contest chair. And then Helen Mar Cook was considered. She was a president at one time, and then Dora Flack, the woman who wrote the history that I mentioned, she was in from 1955 to 95, and she was the president during that time. So it's been a wonderful thing. One interesting thing, back then, sometimes they gave the Writer of the Year award to someone who was considered a writing celebrity, but maybe wasn't necessarily a member of the league, like a professor at the U or something like that. But
Interesting.
now I really like it that we give the Writer of the Year to one of our writers. And that's another thing I've done. I love being Writer of the Year chair. I was Writer of the Year myself in 1997. And it's just a wonderful award. You never lose it. It's something you can kind of always fall back on. It looks great on a resume. The plaque looks great on your wall. It's just a wonderful thing.
For sure. So I'm curious. I know that you had that amazing experience with Mary Higgins Clark. I'm
Yeah.
sure you got some other stories like that. What are some of your favorite memories of the league over the years?
Yes. Oh, and to say just a little bit more about Mary Higgins Clark, she lost her plane ticket, and her assistant called and she said, "We know who the culprit is." And I thought it was just like, here is Mary Higgins Clark and the culprit. we, we know who the culprit is. She said, "It's Mr. Conheeney." And Mary Higgins Clark had recently married for the second time, and her husband had accidentally thrown away her plane ticket. So she just gave me her American Express card, and I bought another ticket. Another interesting thing about her that I'll always remember is that we sold out of books at it was called the Roundup that year. We sold out all of the books that were hers. She signed them all, and she just kept signing. She would sign napkins or placemats or anything like that, so everyone could have a signature from Mary Higgins Clark. I thought that was a great
Oh,
thing.
oh, that is such a neat story to hear. I love when I hear stories like that. I have a good friend that said a very similar thing about Brandon Sanderson when he went back east. My friend lives in D.C. and he said he sat there and he signed all of the books and he was very patient. And then when they were out of books, he would sign some other things for people. I'm like, I love it. That's just so neat that you don't feel like you're above it and you give back even in the little way as an autograph. That impresses me so much. That is so cool.
I thought that was just so wonderful how she kept signing until no one else had anything left to sign. She just kept signing. So that was a great thing. Oh, I have just loved it. I've had so many great memories. Let me think. I'm trying to think what would be the most interesting. Oh, um, oh, I'm just trying to think. But winning Writer of the Year, that was an absolute thrill. That really meant a lot to me. And when if you ever feel down a little bit, you can always think, well, I was Writer of the Year. So so that's a great thing. And then and being in our chapter, I love just our chapter meetings. Sometimes we don't know who's going to come. It's always fun to see who does show up and to see what the speaker is like. And then I've loved writing for, it used to be called the Lariat. You probably know that the League of Utah Writers used to be part of the League of Western Writers.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so a lot of our things used to have Western names like the Lariat and the Roundup, and I'm trying to think of the others, but I thought I've loved writing for the Lariat. I really love anything connected with the league. All the friendships I've made mean a lot to me. I'm sure you feel that way too, that you've met people you would never meet if you weren't a writer. I'm sure
Oh, for
you've had
sure.
that
No
experience.
question. And getting to meet these amazing personalities both in the state and special guests that come in. I mean, it's a one of a kind. Matter of fact, when I was talking with Johnny the other night in his interview, we talked about how we brought in one of his favorite authors, Tim Dorsey, and when he flew in, he's like, "Hey," he goes, "I have this tradition when I fly in, I have to go grocery shopping." And so it was funny because I went grocery shopping with Johnny Worthen and Tim Dorsey, and that was an
Oh,
unbelievable experience. I had never imagined I would ever be in a situation like that, and it was really fun
what a
actually.
great experience. Yeah, you get to see them on the human level and see what they're like. And one time when I was in a book signing at the League, I was with Robert Kirby of the Tribune. Do you know him?
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, he said, Carolyn Campbell, from what you write, people would think you have a shaved head and a safety pin through your ear, but you look like a Relief Society president. And I
Oh,
love that line. I love that. That's a fun memory I
oh,
have.
yeah. I came last year. I came and got to see Kirby speak at the chapter there, and
Oh,
that was a real neat thing, real special. He's such a nice guy.
such a nice guy. Really understands, I think, what it's like to be a writer and what it's like to go through this. And he started out, as you know, being a policeman rather than a writer, and was
Mm,
able to switch over. And I think the best thing about the League and what I would like to do in the League more than anything else is to encourage people, to encourage us to all keep going, and to feel like writing is forever, and to feel like we can just do it as long as we can move our fingers. We can keep writing. But I love trying different things, different kinds of writing. My friend and I wrote a screenplay this year. I hadn't written one before, and that was kind of a fun thing. And then I'm working on a memoir, and I still write every day. Do you, Johnny? Do you write? Johnny, Jared, do you write every day?
I try to write every day. I definitely write emails every day. No, I try to actually
Yeah.
write when I get a chance, every chance I can, because you got to maintain it, right? You got to keep your mindset and stay engaged with everything.
Oh, I think so. I think so. I would just encourage anyone that wants to try writing to try it, to take that step, to try it. And if there's something you want to know about, I think there's almost always someone in the League that knows about different kinds of writing. You can
Hmm.
almost always find someone in the League that knows about the kind of writing that you want to do, I think.
For sure. I'm kind of curious. What made you decide to try and go after a screenplay? That sounds really cool, by the way.
Oh, it's really fun. It takes place in a place here called the Old Mill. Do you know where the Old Mill is in
Yes,
Salt
I
Lake?
do. Yes.
Yes. And then a lot of it takes place in Holiday. A friend who has had a little more experience in that than I have asked me, she said, why don't the two of us try to write this together? And so we did. And it takes place a lot in downtown Holiday. And then the Old Mill is switched into a wedding venue. And I confess, we're trying to sell this as a Hallmark movie.
That's pretty awesome. Matter of fact, a few years ago when I was working with Kevin J. Anderson, who had wrote a lot of Star Wars books and some Dune books. He was really cool. So his wife was working on writing screenplays for Hallmark movies as well. And he goes, they are desperate for movies. So I think that you have a chance. You have a really good chance of actually getting it in there. That would be really cool.
Our fingers are crossed. It was a great learning experience. I think it's fun too that there are so many kinds of writing that you can try. Do you think you can try all kinds of things? And I really believe strongly in what my friend says, no means next. If we don't sell something the first time or the fifth time or the 10th time, just keep going, I would say, because no definitely means next.
I love that. That is a fantastic. I kind of want to make like a league shirt that says no means next now, because that sounds so cool. I love that saying now.
I love it. I love it. It's true. Do you think it's a numbers game? Sending things off is kind of a numbers game. And we keep trying until we sell it. And sometimes we can sell things more than once, or we can make them longer or put them in a different format. It's just a fun thing. I'll always be grateful that I followed my dream. I was quite shy in the beginning, and writing really helped me get out of my shyness. Probably it does that for a lot of people, maybe.
I think it does. Well, it kind of forces you out a little bit. The more successful you are, the more that your writing says, guess what? You're going to be a little bit more in the public eye. Now you're going to be a little bit more in front of people. And that, and people want to then come talk to you more. They're like, they go out of their way to say, hey, it's not you so much going to approach people. It's people coming to you and saying, hey, how did you do that? How do you get there? What's that like?
Oh, yeah. And did you always want to be a writer, Jared? Did you always want to?
So I did, starting in 4th grade. That's when I wanted to start becoming a writer. My class teacher had read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and it had just absolutely captured my imagination. And I'm like, I want to write something that's that kind of powerful and vision. And I just started writing. I never stopped. Like I've always been writing since.
Me, it was 4th grade too. There must be something about that fourth grade time that, books just meant everything to me. I couldn't believe how I could get lost in a book. I'm sure you probably felt that way, that you loved to read even way back then. Yeah. And another good thing about writing, I think, is that in a lot of ways it's not a very expensive pursuit. It doesn't cost very much to just, type something up on your computer and email it off.
Right, to take a chance, right, to write something and put it out. That's actually how I got to writing for Sports Illustrated. I wasn't trying to write for them. I just happened, they had a contact information, and I wrote the editor of their website and just said I loved one of their articles. And they wrote me back. I wasn't ever expecting anything back, and he wrote me back and said, this is interesting. What else would you like to see? And so I gave him a list of things I thought would be cool articles. And then he's like, how would you feel about maybe writing one guest article? I'm like, I'll take a stab at it. And then it just flowed from there. Like it worked. It was completely unintentional, and it didn't cost me anything, right? Like it was really cool and unbelievable. And
it was sportsillustrated.com,
it was right. It was their blog that I was writing for, and at the time at first it was the 49ers, and then the Utah Jazz, and then after that I realized that sports writing wasn't for me, and I have a great deal of respect for sports writers. Their timetables are so tight on when things happen.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Oh, wow. But how thrilling to have that credit on your resume for Sports Illustrated. That is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious. So what was your first book that you got published?
It was a story about, it was called Together Again, and it was about birth parents and adopted children meeting. And as I mentioned last night, I write a lot about adoption. I was adopted myself, and because I was the only adopted child in the neighborhood growing up, I felt different, and I knew how it felt to feel different. So I write a lot of stories about people who feel different for all kinds of reasons, people that have secrets and people that do different things, and then adoption is a frequent
Oh yeah.
topic for me. Yeah.
You might know this. I actually recently learned from a podcast. I've been listening to a lot of those. The pandemic's caused me to listen to a lot of podcasts. But there was this one
Yeah.
podcast that talked about the orphan trains. I don't know if you had heard about those, where it had
Oh,
shipped like I don't know, it was like 500,000 children from the East Coast just out to like the central plains of the United States during the Industrial Revolution.
and it's
So
so fascinating to me. That is just so interesting. And I know that the organization that was in charge of those was called the Children's Aid Society,
that's
and I
right.
myself was adopted from the Children's Aid Society in Ogden, Utah, just from an agency. But it really, and I want to speak up for adoption. I would say that my adoption was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was raised in a wonderful family, and everything went great. And so I was going to speak at the American Adoption Congress in San Diego in June, but then it went the way of the pandemic.
Mm,
Another thing writing did for me, tell me if it helped you this way. I never thought I would be a speaker, but writing led to speaking, and now I love speaking too. Did that happen to you? Did
it
you have
did.
them?
It's funny. I was talking with Amanda Lazater, and I told her, I said, it was never my intention to become somebody who's in like public facing, to be a speaker, to go talk to people, and because I'm such an introvert, like I love being in my dark office and writing my stories, but when I started interfacing more with the public, I wore suits a lot. Matter of fact, the only reason I'm not wearing a suit is because the hat doesn't work with this headset, and it looks awkward when I wear a suit without the hat. But so I wore the suit, and I used that as my crutch for a while. I imagined that I was a character, and it was like a theater
Oh,
play.
yeah.
And so I'd use
How
that,
fun.
and so I'd get out there, and I'd say, "This is what my character would say. This is how they would be dynamic." And then I found myself being so comfortable and so confident that then I was like, "Yeah, let's go talk in another chapter. Let's go out of our way to seek opportunities to go talk," which I never thought in 1,000 years I would ever go out of my way to do.
Oh, me too, exactly like that. Then another thing I write about, one of my favorite stories is my sister called me one day and she said, Carolyn, there's a contest in the Tribune on page B2. Go get your Tribune, and if you enter that contest, you will win. And it was the cluttered contest. They were looking for the most cluttered person in Salt Lake, the person with the messiest house. And she thought that was me. And so the only thing that saved my ego was what they wanted to do was write about how you struggled with clutter. And so I entered that contest, and to make a long story short, I did win. I was declared the most cluttered person in Salt Lake. But it but it led to a lot of article sales. I got in Family Circle, and I was in an airline magazine. And so when I speak, I often tell people, if there's something in your life that's hard, something you're trying to come to terms with that you haven't quite come to terms with yet, that will often lead to great writing. If there's something you're still emotionally grappling with a little bit, that's
Mm.
probably a good thing for you to write about. I don't know if you've had that experience. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I've had that exact experience. Very, very similar. Now, I think some people from my background might think that I'm the most cluttered person in Utah right now. I got a lot of clutter going on. I was pointing out that the only thing that definitely was not cluttered is my Silver Quill Award. That's always uncluttered because
Oh, that's a wonderful thing.
I love
Yeah,
the
that's,
league so much.
oh, me too. Me too. And I like too how the league is open to anyone of any age. Do you think
Mm.
they're all ages and all specialties, and we can all just identify with each other because we're all kind of in this same boat?
Yeah, the same
Um,
struggle, the same accomplishment. We just want to get to the next, and that's so cool that we can prop each other up and help each other out.
oh, I think so. I think so. It's just a great thing. And sometimes when really well-known writers come and speak, it's interesting to see that they have a struggle still too, that they
Mm.
have their dark days, and they have times that don't always go perfect. And so it kind of helps us, I think.
It does for sure. It lets them know that they are human. That's always nice to know. that once you publish so many books, you don't just gain like some like angelic status where now nothing struggles. Now that
Oh
would be
yeah,
in
yeah.
my mind. I think that would be amazing, but at the same time, no, that would be a weird curse. Nothing left to write with, then, right? It's your
One
experiences.
one story, I don't know if I should mention this or not, but it was funny. Our keynote speaker once at the roundup was very drunk, and they had to get him to come out of his room, and he was very inebriated, and we didn't know what we were going to do, and he made it through, but oh, it was something, and then we wondered if he'd write and apologize or anything like that. But he wrote a letter to us and said, I had the most wonderful time at the League convention and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Oh, you never know what's going to happen. And I'm really,
No.
I am really excited because this is, of course, the first of 3 interviews I'm planning to do with you. And I just got notice from League leadership that they're thinking about maybe turning some of these interviews into a podcast also, so that might become a thing. But what I love is in the next couple of interviews how we're going to go more into a little bit more closer look at what it's been like as Writer of the Year chair, right? What it's been like, what it was like as president, like what your conference kind of looked at, some of those things. Because yeah, I can identify exactly. I didn't have a drunk presenter, but as soon as you said that, like my mind, that's one of like a dozen scenarios you go through as president in your mind, thinking, "What do I do if?" And you're like,
Yes, yes.
how do I handle this? That's going to come up. What this challenge?
Yeah, oh, but it's all thrilling, I think. You
Mm.
think all the League events are just thrilling, and then as a writer too, it's wonderful that League events get us out of our houses for a little while. Do you think get us
Mm.
away from our computers for a little while and interact with other people? I think that's a great part of the League
Oh,
too.
for sure, for sure. Well, that and I've seen so many times where people have created close friendships and created new writing groups and became good friends with people who they never would have had contact with otherwise. And it's so wonderful to then see them at the next conference come back together. Some of them see each other in between, some don't. Some just email each other or things, and it's like a family reunion the next time they
Oh
see each
yeah.
other. And it's so much fun. And that's what I love. I love when I see groups who come back together and then they go out to dinner and then I'm near them and I could just hear them just so happy, so excited. They're re-energizing their writing batteries. They're creating these strong friendships. It's just an unbelievable experience.
It's just thrilling. It really is. And I had a friend say another great thing about the conference is we often go stay in a nice hotel and we have a wonderful banquet and all of that. And it even, that's kind of a fun getaway, do
It
you
is
think?
a
Is
little escape. Yeah, a little escape is always for a lot of us. I mean, so many in the league who have families, just getting that, even if they can only go for a day, but just kind of escape the noise and the clutter and that life creates just for a moment, really helps a writer, to carry on for the next, so long for their writing career. So that's really cool.
I think so. And then when we do have those one-on-one meetings with agents and publishers, if they offer us an encouraging word, that's just so thrilling. Do you think
Mm,
that's just it's just
absolutely.
waiting?
That's what I love is when I love being a volunteer with the agents and editors, like at conferences, because I could hear as somebody's leaving a conversation with an agent or an editor, and they like whisper to me. They're like, "Hey, they asked for my manuscript. They love my
Yeah.
idea.
Oh,
They want to see this," and they just suddenly like their light is shining so bright. They're just so
oh,
happy and glowing at that moment.
oh, it's so thrilling. I read once, and I kind of thought this was true, that as far as writing goes, the highs are higher and the lows are lower than regular life. Do you think that's
Another great quote that we got, that we need to put on a T-shirt, maybe some mugs. Oh, that yeah, completely agree with that. By the way, I completely agree.
I do too. The thrills and the highs are just the best, and sometimes it can get a little bleak. Would you say
Yes,
a little?
it
Yeah,
it can get a little dark. Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much, Carolyn, for joining me this evening. We will schedule the other interviews, And
That would be
I'm
great.
excited to continue to work with you. And to be honest, I actually want to do a couple of interviews later where I have a few people on at the same time. And so I'll probably schedule that later on as well. But
That sounds fun. That sounds really fun.
I hope so. I mean, it sounds really exciting to me, and it's just an amazing honor for me to interview you, who I could not have worked on or accomplished the things that I was able to when I became president without all the amazing work that you did in the past and continue to do. That means so much to me and everybody else. So thank you so much. I'm really excited to work with you.
And Jared, I think you were such an amazing president. I think you've just brought a great life to the league. You've just filled it with life, and we're so lucky to have you. And I also think you'll be just a wonderful historian. And I think you might really enjoy being the historian.
I already enjoy it. I get to talk with some of my most favorite people and interview them for the history of the league. So now moving on, we'll edit these. They'll go on their YouTube channels. Future members will be able to see these and look back, learn about what the league was like, what it was like at the different conferences and things. And I'm excited, like you mentioned, to get a hold of that history that was written so I can know a little bit more, even as the historian. I'm excited to bring that up.
I was just so thrilled about that. I had called her family, and they looked through all her things, and they said, I guess she just didn't keep that. So it was just a real thrill to find out that it's still there, and it's still at the Utah Historical Society. So it's great. It's great to have our history.
Yes, absolutely. Well, perfect. I thank you so much again, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up for this evening, and I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much for thinking of me. I loved it.